My wife stole $200, $0 from our joint account and moved out with our house. Then her new boyfriend's sister, who's a lawyer, filed a fake paternity claim on my infant son just to ruin me financially, and I've just found out she's been planning it all along. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to catch his wife cheating, but here I am, living through it. The most shocking part: it wasn't just the affair. There's a whole web of lies, betrayal, and financial ruin that I uncovered in the process. Honestly, I still can't believe how everything unraveled so fast. One day, I was just a regular guy married to a woman I thought I knew, and the next, I was staring at the wreckage of my life with a mix of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. Her name was. She's a beautiful woman, confident, pretty much the kind everyone notices. We'd been married for about 5 years. At first, things weren't perfect, but I thought we had a good life: 2 kids, a house, a steady income, and plans for the future. But then I started noticing strange things. She'd be on her phone a lot more than usual, sneaking around in the mornings and late at night. She'd cancel plans last minute, sometimes claiming she was busy with work, but I could tell she was hiding something. The first real sign that something was wrong was when I found her phone one night. I was just trying to grab my charger from the bedside table, and her phone lit up with a message. It was from a guy named Jake. The message was flirty, suggestive even, and I froze. I knew instantly this wasn't just some innocent chat. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept quiet, but I kept an eye on her after that. It took me a couple of weeks to confirm my suspicions. She was acting different, more defensive, more secretive. I caught her in little lies here and there, like she'd say she was working late, but then I'd see her out with someone. Eventually, I got a hold of her email account and saw a string of messages with Jake, talking about sneaking around, meeting up, and keeping it quiet. That was the moment I knew she was cheating on me. But what really knocked me out was the financial side of things. I started poking around our bank accounts because I'd noticed some strange withdrawals. Over the past few months, she'd been siphoning money from our joint account, around $200, $0, without telling me. It was gone just like that. I couldn't believe it. She used the money to pay for her new apartment, her new car, and probably to fund her secret life with Jake. She lied about how we were doing financially, saying we were tight, but she was secretly draining our savings. I confronted her about the money first. I asked her where the hell that money went, and she just shrugged, smirked, and said she'd been investing in herself, whatever that meant. When I pressed her further, she got bitchy, told me I was overreacting, and that I was paranoid. She even had the audacity to call me controlling when I asked her about her whereabouts or why she was acting so secretive. It was clear she'd been planning her escape for a while, selling our house, moving out, and getting ready to start her new life with Jake. The day I found out she was leaving, she packed her bags while I was at work. She took the kids' stuff, the house, everything. Left me with an empty bank account, a house full of memories, and a broken heart. That was just the start. The real shocker came the next day when I discovered she'd also enlisted her lawyer friend, who's actually Jake's sister, to file a fake paternity claim on my infant son. I mean, who does that? To ruin me financially, emotionally, and legally all at once. Lies got darker than I ever could have imagined. I was numb. I didn't know what to feel first: anger, betrayal, sadness, or just pure disbelief. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could lie so effortlessly and then turn around and try to destroy me. It's like she was playing some twisted game, and I was just a pawn she was discarding. I had no idea how deep her deception went or how much she'd been planning this behind my back. Now, I'm sitting here trying to piece everything together. The house is empty, my bank account is drained, and I'm left with a kid I love more than anything but who's caught in the middle of this mess. I don't know what's worse: the fact that she cheated on me, stole from us, or that she's now trying to ruin me with this fake paternity thing. All I know is I need to fight back, and I need to figure out how to come out of this mess with whatever dignity I can salvage. After I found out about the fake paternity claim, everything changed. It was like someone had turned the world upside down overnight. I never thought the woman I loved and trusted would stoop so low. I remember sitting in my empty house, staring at my phone, trying to process what I just learned. Her lawyer, Jake's sister, had filed that ridiculous claim, claiming I wasn't the father of my own son just to screw me over financially. I felt rage boiling up inside me, but underneath that, there was this deep, gnawing pain. How could she do this? How could she turn my kid into a pawn in her sick game? The first thing I did was dig into her plans. I knew she was planning something, but I didn't realize how far she'd gone until I got a hold of her emails and messages. Turns out, she'd been working with her lawyer friend, who, by the way, is Jake's sister and a damn good lawyer, to come up with this fake paternity story. She'd even gone as far as hiring a private investigator to gather evidence that I was an unfit father just to make her case stronger. I couldn't believe she'd go so far, using her own kid as a weapon just to ruin me. I needed to figure out my next move. I hired my own lawyer, someone I found through a friend, who specialized in family law and financial crimes. When I told him everything, he looked stunned but said this was a serious case. She was committing fraud and her lawyer sister was aiding her. We started building a case, collecting evidence that proved I was the biological father and that the paternity claim was fabricated. I also uncovered that she'd been planning her escape for months, selling our house, draining our joint account, and even setting up the fake legal battle to drag me into a nightmare. Meanwhile, I was spiraling emotionally. I felt betrayed, furious, and helpless all at once. Every time I thought about her lying to my face, sneaking around, and now trying to take my kid away from me, I wanted to scream. The worst part was seeing how she'd lied to our kids, telling them I was not a good dad or that I was absent, just to turn them against me. She'd been planting seeds of doubt, all while living her double life. It was like she was deliberately trying to destroy everything we had built together. In the midst of all this chaos, I discovered even more. She'd been secretly talking to Jake, her new boyfriend, while still married. She told him she was done with me, but I found messages where she was still planning to leave, still making secret arrangements. The money she stole, that was just the beginning. She'd also been planning to cut me out of the will to make sure I had nothing left if she managed to win her legal battle. It was calculated, cold, and brutal. I kept thinking, how did I miss all this? How did I not see the warning signs? One night, I found her new apartment address in her email. It was in a fancy part of town, fully furnished, and she was already living her new life. I felt sick knowing she'd been lying to me for months, probably since the day she decided to cheat and steal. I knew I had to be careful. She was dangerous in her own twisted way. If she thought I was onto her, she might try to do something even worse. I also started talking to some friends and family about everything. Some said I should just walk away, let her go, and focus on my kids. Others said I should fight for custody and expose her lies. I didn't want to just give up, but I also knew I couldn't do this alone. The whole situation was a nightmare and I felt like I was drowning in it. Still, I made a vow to myself. I wasn't going down without a fight. I'd prove her lies wrong, get my kid back, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. Every day since then, I've been gathering evidence, trying to stay one step ahead of her schemes. I've been reading up on legal strategies, talking to lawyers, and trying to keep my head clear. But honestly, it's hard. Every time I see her name pop up in court documents, or hear my kid cry because she's been told I'm not their real dad, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I love that little boy more than anything, and I can't let her destroy that bond. I know I have a long battle ahead, but I'm determined to fight for what's right. I just wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but now, all I can do is fight for my family's future. The more I dug into everything, the clearer it became how deep her lies went. Was a master manipulator. She always had been. And now I was seeing just how far she was willing to go to get what she wanted. She convinced everyone, including her own family, that I was an absentee father, a deadbeat who didn't care about his kids. Meanwhile, she was out every night with Jake, spending money I didn't even know she had and planning her new life. It was like I was living in some twisted nightmare where the person I trusted most had turned into my worst enemy. I started to piece together her entire plan. She'd been secretly siphoning money from our joint account for months, funneling it into accounts in her sister's name, who, by the way, is a lawyer. That's how she managed to hide her tracks so well. When I confronted her about the missing money, she just brushed me off, called me paranoid, and accused me of trying to control her. But now I knew she'd been planning her escape all along, and that fake paternity claim was just her latest move to drag me down. One thing that really pushed me over the edge was the realization that she'd been working with her sister, Jake's lawyer, to cook up that fake paternity story. I found emails where her sister was advising her on how to fake documents, how to make it look convincing, and even how to get a court to believe her. That was when I knew I had to fight fire with fire. If she was willing to lie and cheat to get what she wanted, I had to do the same, except legally. I hired a private investigator to track her movements, and I started gathering evidence that proved I was the father all along. I needed to show the court that this was a sham, a malicious lie designed to ruin me. Meanwhile, I was overwhelmed with a mix of emotions. I felt betrayed, yes, but also furious. How could she do this? How could she turn our kid into a pawn just to get back at me? She'd lied about everything, our finances, our relationship, even her love for me. It was like she'd been living a double life, and I was just a fool for not seeing it sooner. Every night I lay awake, replaying all the signs I missed, all the moments I should have noticed her slipping away. It's incredible how someone you love can become a stranger so quickly. The worst part was seeing how she was already trying to control the narrative. She told everyone she was the victim, that I was a deadbeat dad who abandoned his family. She even tried to turn the kids against me, saying I didn't want them or that I was too busy with work. I knew I had to step up, to show the truth before she managed to ruin everything completely. I started recording our interactions, saving emails, and gathering witness statements from friends who saw her sneaking around or acting suspiciously. I also discovered that she'd been secretly talking to Jake during all of this, probably even while she was pretending to be a devoted wife. I found messages where she was telling him she was done with me but still coordinating her plans behind my back. She'd even told him she'd leave the house and take the kids, and he was just waiting for her signal. It was like watching a conspiracy unfold, and I was right in the middle of it. I felt sick knowing she'd been lying to me the entire time, pretending everything was fine while she plotted her escape. I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to protect my son, clear my name, and hold her accountable. That's when I made the decision to go all in. I contacted a forensic accountant to trace every dollar she'd stolen, and I started preparing for a legal battle that I knew would be brutal. I also decided to fight for full custody of my child. If she was willing to lie and cheat, I needed to make sure he was safe with me. I couldn't let her continue to poison him with her lies or manipulate him into thinking I was some kind of villain. It's been a hell of a ride so far. Every new piece of evidence makes me more determined, but it also hurts more. I never imagined my life would turn into this mess. I loved once, believed in our future, and now I'm fighting to keep my family intact, at least in the sense that I want my son to grow up knowing his real father. I've learned that trust is fragile, and some people will go to any lengths to destroy what they don't want to lose. All I can do now is keep fighting, stay strong, and hope that the truth will come out in the end. The legal process has been every day feels like a new battle, more lies, more manipulations, and more evidence I have to counter her falsehoods. I never imagined I'd have to go through something like this, especially not with the woman I once loved. But here I am, pouring every ounce of my energy into proving her wrong, into protecting my kid, and into getting some sense of justice. One of the hardest things has been seeing how she's managed to turn people against me. Her friends, her family, everyone seems convinced she's the victim, that I'm the villain. She's good at spinning stories, twisting facts, and making herself look like the wronged wife. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here with stacks of evidence that clearly show her planning her escape, stealing money, and fabricating that bogus paternity claim. I've had to be relentless, gathering witness statements, saving every text, every email, every piece of proof I could find. I hired a top-notch family law attorney, someone with experience in complex custody and financial fraud cases. We filed for full custody, and I made it clear I wanted to protect my son from her lies and manipulations. I also initiated a forensic audit of her finances, something I pushed hard for because I knew she'd been hiding money. When the reports came back, it was a shock. She stolen not just the $200, $0 from our joint account, but also had a hidden stash of cash in various offshore accounts. She'd been planning this for months, maybe even longer. Meanwhile, her fake paternity claim, it was starting to fall apart. The court ordered DNA testing, and I was confident that my son was mine. Still, the legal battle dragged on. Every hearing was a new shove into the abyss. Her lawyer trying to spin stories, her claiming she was the victim of an abusive marriage, and her trying to paint me as some kind of deadbeat dad who just disappeared. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go just to keep her lies afloat. But I wasn't giving up. I knew I had the truth on my side. I had the evidence that proved she'd been lying about everything. I also discovered that she'd been talking to Jake's sister, her lawyer, about ways to discredit me further, including planting false evidence or making false accusations. That was the moment I realized how dangerous she was. She wasn't just a cheating wife. She was orchestrating an elaborate scheme to ruin me financially and emotionally. The hardest part was seeing my son caught in the middle. He's only a year old, but he senses the tension. He looks at me with those innocent eyes, and I see how confused he is. I want to shield him from all this chaos, but I can't protect him from his mother's lies. Every day, I remind myself that I have to stay strong for him, for my own sanity. It's heartbreaking to think she's willing to destroy everything we built just for her own selfish gain. Some nights, I lie awake replaying everything, her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. I wonder how I missed the signs, how I didn't see how cold she'd become. I used to think we had a good life, but now I realize it was built on lies. I trusted her completely, and that trust was shattered in an instant. The pain is so raw I sometimes feel like I can't breathe, but I keep going because I know I have to. I have to fight for my son's future, for my own dignity, and to make sure she doesn't get away with destroying everything. Every day I remind myself that truth has a way of coming out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. I'm holding on to that hope, even when everything else feels like it's crumbling. I've learned that some people will lie, cheat, and manipulate to get what they want, but justice tends to catch up with them. I just have to stay focused, keep fighting, and trust that in the end the right thing will prevail, because I refuse to let her win. Not like this. Not after everything we've been through. The court hearings have been brutal, but I can see the tide turning in my favor. My lawyer and I worked tirelessly, presenting evidence that clearly shows pattern of deception, her secret accounts, her lies about the money, her manipulative messages, and her attempt to falsely discredit me as a father. Every piece of proof was like a brick in building my case, and I could see the judges starting to see through her lies. Still, I knew she'd pull every dirty trick she could to keep her scheme afloat. One day, during a particularly intense hearing, her lawyer tried to introduce some questionable evidence, some fake documents and misleading testimonies. I sat there, furious, and my lawyer immediately objected. We had already prepared for that. We had forensic experts ready to testify that her documents were forged, that her financial claims were fabricated, and that her entire story was built on lies. The judge saw right through her tactics, and that day I could feel a shift. It was like I was finally starting to regain some ground. Meanwhile, I was spending as much time as I could with my son. Despite everything, I wanted him to know he was loved and that his dad was fighting to keep him safe. I'd visit him every day, bring toys, sing to him, and just hold him close. It was the only thing that kept me sane. I knew was trying to turn him against me, filling his head with lies, but I refused to let her. The court order was clear. I was to have supervised visits, and I was determined to make the most of every second I had with him. Her attempts to manipulate the system were relentless. She filed for emergency custody, claiming I was an unfit parent based on false allegations of neglect and emotional abuse. It was all part of her strategy to scare me off or to get full custody herself. I was devastated when I first heard, but my lawyer quickly responded, providing evidence of my stable home, my involvement in my son's life, and her history of lies. We also brought in witnesses, neighbors, friends, who to my responsible parenting and her erratic behavior. The worst moment came when I discovered she'd hired a private investigator to follow me around, trying to catch me slipping up or doing something she could use against me. I felt like I was living in some spy movie. I reported it to my lawyer, who filed a motion to stop her from harassing me, and the court agreed. I realized how far she was willing to go. She wasn't just lying anymore. She was actively trying to sabotage me at every turn. Through all this, I learned some hard lessons about trust, betrayal, and the importance of protecting what's yours. Lies had almost destroyed me financially, emotionally, and legally, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of winning. I doubled down on my efforts, stayed focused on the truth, and kept fighting for my son's future. I also started seeing a counselor to help me process the anger and grief I'd been carrying. It's been a long road, and I still have a lot to go through, but I'm determined to come out of this stronger. Looking back, I realize how naive I was to trust so blindly. Was good at hiding her true self, and I let my love blind me to the signs. But now I see everything clearly. Her greed, her lies, her manipulations, none of it is worth losing. My integrity or my child. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's to stay vigilant, to listen to your instincts, and never ignore the warning signs. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But I also know there's hope. Justice can prevail if you fight for it. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't stop until I protect my son and clear my name. The court finally made its ruling, and I can honestly say it was a relief, though not the kind of relief I imagined. The judge dismissed fake paternity claim outright, confirmed that I am the biological father, and awarded me primary custody of my son. The look on her face when the verdict was read was priceless, shock mixed with pure rage. She tried to argue, to throw a tantrum, but her lies had been exposed for what they were. The court saw through her manipulations, and I could finally breathe a little easier. The aftermath has been a whirlwind. Legal tactics have dried up, and she's been ordered to pay back the stolen money, every penny. That's still a work in progress. But I have faith that the authorities will make her accountable. As for her, she's been cut out of my life, and hopefully out of my son's future. I've kept the door open for her to see her child, but only under strict supervision and with the understanding that she's got serious consequences to face if she tries to manipulate or lie again. Living through this chaos has changed me. I won't lie. There's a part of me that still feels angry, betrayed, and hurt. But I've also learned resilience. I've become more cautious, more aware of how fragile trust can be, and how dangerous it is when someone you love turns out to be someone you don't recognize anymore. I've found strength in my support system, friends, family, and a counselor who helped me process everything, and I've started to rebuild my life piece by piece. Most importantly, I've realized that I was stronger than I thought. I fought for my son, for my reputation, and for my own sanity. I refused to let her lies define me. It's not easy, and I know I'll carry the scars of this experience for a long time, but I also know I came out of it with a clearer sense of what really matters. Trust, once broken, is hard to mend, but honesty, integrity, and love can rebuild what's lost if you're willing to fight for it. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the warning signs sooner. I wish I hadn't been so blind to her manipulations. But I also know that some lessons are only learned the hard way. If there's one piece of advice I can give anyone in a similar situation, it's this: trust your instincts. No matter how much you love someone, keep your eyes open. Pay attention to the small signs, secretive behavior, financial discrepancies, inconsistent stories. Because once betrayal happens, it's like a bomb going off in your life, and it takes a long time to put the pieces back together. Now I focus on my son. He's my world, and I'll do whatever it takes to give him a stable, loving environment. I've learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a chance for a new beginning. Life isn't about avoiding pain, it's about how you respond to it. I've chosen to stand tall, to fight for what's right, and to never let anyone take away my peace again. It's been a brutal journey, but I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that, more than anything, gives me hope.